Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. We're back with Spawn Daily. As we've discussed before, we're looping in some other Spawn adjacent stuff that's outside the main Spawn series. Once again, I am joined by Blake Whitlow, who put together the amazing Spawn reading order that we're using. And this is one of those instances where we're going to dip outside of the regular Spawn series. We're going to talk about 3 issues of Curse of Spawn. We're not going to go as in-depth as we do on the regular Spawn series, like page by page, but this is a very important arc. It's very important, a very important character, based on what Blake has told me. Obviously, we saw in the last issue of Spawn that we reviewed, 61, that Spawn was having some flashbacks that maybe it wasn't Chapel all along who killed him, which, it's kind of wonky, to be honest, but you understand logistically behind the scenes why McFarlane had to make the choice. That, was the whole falling out between Rob Liefeld and the rest of Image. It's a very important aspect of the character of Spawn. Who killed him, right? Like, who did Jason Wynn get to kill Spawn? And you can't have it where it's a character you don't own. You don't have control over. It's too important a part of the story. And not only that, like, if that were still part of the story, Rob Liefeld doesn't even own the rights to Chapel anymore. He doesn't own the rights to Youngblood. He sold them, and then they got sold again. And, yeah, it's a big mess. So, again, you can understand why McFarlane made the change, even if it is a little bit wonky. So let's go ahead and dive in. Again, we're going to go through this kind of fast. You can see the cover there. I looked to try to find out who this model is. Very beautiful woman. I couldn't find it. There is a credit inside for the cover, but it doesn't actually say who the model is. So you can see it in here. Cover and design by Brent Ash. This is clearly not Brent Ash, unless he is cross-dressing, in which case he's a very, very attractive man. But anyway, to get into the credits here, Curse of Spawn, number 12, and 12 through 14 is what we're going to be covering today. Number 12, written by Alan McElroy, beautiful pencils by Dwayne Turner, which are very reminiscent of a McFarlane or Greg Capullo's, definitely in that style. Danny Miki does the inks with a special thanks to Chance Wolfe. Orzechowski on letters, and then we've got Todd Broeker and Mark Nichols on the color work.
Quick thing on the cover, that is a actress named Melinda Clark. So we all know that Spawn was really, really big in the 90s. He had the animated HBO show that ran for 3 seasons, and he also had a live-action movie done by New Line Cinema. It's really campy. It's full of all sorts of, like, really cheesy superhero movie tropes and
90s special effects.
Yeah, it's bad, but in a good way. It's definitely worth watching. And Melinda Clark is the actress that played Jessica Priest for the movie. Around this time period, as the comics were kind of changing the formula of Spawn's background, the movie was also coming out. They're kind of like tying those elements together. So some of the actual plot lines of this comic series, of this little arc with Jessica Priest, actually incorporates elements from the movie into the comic version of events, although they are different. The movie is a separate continuity from the comic series. Todd McFarlane or whoever was writing this series, they were like, hey, let's incorporate some of the movie stuff, so if we have any fans of the movie coming into the comics, then there's like some common ground that they can dive into and be like, oh, like from the movie. So
yeah, so let's go ahead and dive in. We meet this woman whose name is Jessica Priest when she's just a little kid. You can see her there. Her house is on fire. She's got her little stuffed animal, and she's roasting marshmallows outside her house as her house is burning down. And when the fire department shows up, where's your parents? Are you okay? And what they come to learn is that her parents didn't want her eating the marshmallows. So she decided to set them on fire while they were in bed so she could roast her marshmallows. So from a very young age, basically, we're told that this chick's nuts. Yeah, there's not...
You see the knife inside of her bear?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this isn't a stable human. and it's right from the start. So we jump forward a few decades. She's in Iraq. She's killed a bunch of people. She's singing songs as she kills people. It's my party. You'll die if I want to, like, again, clearly not stable, but clearly very capable. So she's got this Iraqi general who she sticks a bomb in his pants, basically. So, she's going to blow off his manhood unless he gives her the codes to the missiles. He complies, and she blows him up anyway. So pretty typical stuff when it comes to, psychopath. We find out that she's working for Jason Wynn. Jason Wynn and her seem to have a special bond, I'll call it. It doesn't seem to be sexual necessarily, which you might, assume because he's, she's a very attractive woman and he's Jason Wynn, professional scumbag. But it definitely seems to be that she, and you'll see this throughout the arc here, she really desires, she wants to be able to kill people, basically. Like, she wants an outlet for this side of her, and Jason Wynn provides that. So he's one of, she is one of his best operatives, and she definitely takes advantage. So he gives her a new mission. She needs to go and steal something called Bioweapon Heat 16, which is being developed by these fraternal twins. The man is Kevin Broeker, and the woman is Liz Arno. I don't know why, if they're fraternal twins, they have different last names, but they do. And they're also
married.
They're also, crazy, incestuous brother and sister. It's kind of gross. But either way, she's got to go and steal this weapon. But before she does, she checks in on the home life. So it's so interesting here. She's married. She has a couple of kids. And again, it's just, she talks about that she's scratching an itch here. What is it to have a normal life? She tells her family she's a businesswoman, and she's just kind of playing a role. We're told that this is her playing house, a little game she likes to call family. But yeah, clearly not something that goes very, very deep. So it doesn't take too long before she's in the air. She's flying to South America. But she's betrayed by the guy that they hire to guide them to this secret bunker location where they're developing this Heat 16 bioweapon. The boat they're on is blown up. She, of course, because again, she's super formidable, survives the explosion, starts taking out all the guys as she's leaping through the air. She can expert marksman, hitting this guy in the eye, hitting this guy in the forehead while jumping with these pistols. Again, comics, very 90s.
Big action set pieces. Everything's on fire.
Yep, everything's on fire. Double page spreads. Ends up in the river. South American river. Of course, there's piranhas and giant crocodiles and what have you. Shoots a crocodile, watches it get stripped to its bone, down to its bones in seconds by the piranha. And then this is really interesting, right? She climbs up on the boat of the guys that attacked her. There's only a couple of her men that have survived, and she basically, and there's all this poison gas around, and she tells all these guys to take their masks off, or she's going to start shooting them in the legs, like inch by inch, and basically torture them. And they're like, well, we can't take our masks off, we'll die. She's like, well, you're going to die anyway. You want to die in horrible agonizing pain, or do you want to breathe the gas and fall asleep? What's interesting is after they take the mask off, she's like, you dummies, I was out of bullets. So not only is she really formidable as a fighter, she's also pretty savvy and completely ruthless. So now that she has transportation again, she finds her way into the base. They kind of know she's coming, but they're not necessarily prepared because she's just that good. Again, a lot of 90s action here from Dwayne Turner, explosions and blood and body parts. And she eventually does get captured, however, just kind of overwhelmed by these two scientists who shoot her and seem to be pretty happy to perform some experiments on her. Like, oh, this is she's bloody, she's cool, she's beautiful. Let's see what we can do with her. So that leads directly into the second issue. That's the third. Hold on, second issue. Here we go. When they have started to perform some experiments on her, and we're told that they do a lot of experiments on a lot of different people. We're not 100% sure what this this Heat 16 bioweapon is, but it's clear through the dialogue of these two creepy scientists, this incestuous brother and sister, that they're kind of nuts. They want to make the world supposedly a better place by making, like, advancing humans, but they kind of don't care who they kill in the short term. So, you know, again, not great. And the experiments that have been performed on Jessica Priest, we're told, really are excruciating, right? 6 days of excruciating agony, and but in a way, because she's so sadistic, she almost takes pleasure in pain. Like, obviously she takes pleasure in dishing out pain and killing people, but she sort of takes pleasure in experiencing the pain as well. So we get a couple of flashbacks here also, back after she was incarcerated, or you know, the issue with or the event with burning down her home. She was in this mental hospital. They tortured her. That's what we're seeing here. Or, you know, electroshock therapy is what they called it, but really it's just torture. So again, just a flashback and an idea that, yeah, her and pain are kind of old friends, and it's what helps her be able to deal with, you know, situations like she's in here. So even though they're experimenting on her and causing her all this pain, she's laughing in a way. She's like, well, this is nostalgic. And even the creepy scientists are creeped out, like, she's scaring me, make her stop laughing. So meanwhile, the two of her men that survived, they have been experimented on as well, and they've been turned into these beasts. And here's where we get the plan. You know, the female scientists saying, we purge the world with Heat 16, and then we use our biogen variant, New Gen 207, to remake mankind, and, you know, they'll be so much better and, you know, more powerful, and lofty goal, and Darwin would approve, but, you know, everybody on Earth now has to die, so, you know, we can force this this evolution. And that's sort of what these two guys are a part of, this evolution, supposedly make people better. So meanwhile, Jessica, she's in her cell, she's naked, she's got no weapons, she pukes up something, a little explosive that she, I guess, carries around in her stomach all the time for just such an occasion. So it's not too long.
Planning ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you're as crazy as she is, yeah. So she,
in my belly.
yeah, and it's pretty cool. A pretty cool idea here. So she pukes it up, she uses it, she blasts her way out of her cell, she grabs some weapons and some clothes from the guys that she took out, and then she just does what she does. You know, doesn't take her very long to take out the guards. I mean, she was all locked down. They weren't really that worried about her, maybe underestimated her a little bit. She finds her way into the main lab. She finds this Heat 16, which is just this, again, little tiny vial of almost nothing, smaller even than the explosive that she was carrying in her stomach. So what does she do? Safekeeping. She swallows it. She swallows the Heat 16. And then when the scientists come in and find out that she's taken it, by that time she's already out. She's already out of the lab. Again, it's not like she's out for revenge or out to take out the scientists. She's all about completing the mission, and the mission is Heat 16. She has it. Now it's time to leave. So she goes on the run. Now, what's interesting is we find out that these two former men of hers, Obersmith and Zax are their names. They have used some of her DNA. They've given these former men, who now look like, I don't know, hounds from hell. They've given them some of her DNA, some of Jessica Priest's DNA, and they can genetically track her. Like, they can smell her DNA. So pretty hard to get away from that if you're Jessica. So she finds this city after 4 days in the jungle, eating edible insects and water vines and whatnot. She finds this town called El Morte. If you're familiar with Latin, that means death. The town is literally named Death. And who does she find first sight when she comes into town? The guy that was her guide that betrayed her, Juco. So she wants to find out who he's working for, why he did what he did. try to see if he can help her anyway. And, he doesn't really have much of an excuse. He's just like, yeah, they offered me, a hell of a lot of money, so I took it. So while she's distracted by Juko, she actually gets attacked by some other ne'er-do-wells in this town. And it's a little coincidental here. Like, really, like, are all the jungles of South America just infested with like crazy psycho criminal scientists, and like nobody's good? Everybody's out there. Like,
Spawn's universe, apparently that's the case.
Yeah, like who is there to even like exploit? Like, if you're a criminal, you're just surrounded by a bunch of other criminals. It's almost like gang war all the time. But anyway, she's captured, and again, sort of captured relatively easily for how formidable she is most of the time. I guess I'll chalk it up to 4 days in the jungle, eating bugs and water vines, and all the torture she underwent while she's in the lab. But she does get captured pretty easily here. Meanwhile, the two former colleagues of hers, I guess we'll call them, are still chasing her down. And when they get to the town, they track her to the town. We're told that they sort of help the town live up to its name, as it were, by just killing and eating everybody in the town. We're told that they have to eat. They have to. There's a lot of demands on their body to regenerate their tissues constantly, and so they're kind of forced to feed. They're always hungry, ravenous, and so by the time they leave the town, there's not much left except for Juko's monkey. So that was pretty terrifying in a lot of ways. Meanwhile, we see that Jessica has been taken to this mine where all these slaves are working to mine some ore, which will eventually become weapons-grade uranium. And some kind of warlord here who is in charge of this. Elric Westerlin is his name. And basically he needs this slave labor because, again, they're mining radioactive ore. So not only is it hard work and grueling, the miners don't last too long because, radiation poisoning. So Jessica's got to think, okay, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to escape? And Westerling also taunts her by saying, oh, by the way, what is this thing that I found inside you? It must have been pretty important to be hidden inside you. And Jessica's like, wait, what? How did he get the Heat 16 module? And then we're told, well, he searches everybody that comes in with x-rays and metal detectors. He doesn't want anybody, smuggling weapons in or, some way to escape. So, yeah, Jessica's not exactly in a great place, almost out of the frying pan into the fire here. And she's back at square one. She no longer has the Heat 16 bioweapon. So that's where issue 3 kicks off. We see her mining. We're told that, she's been there for a little while, trying to figure out how to escape. Patience is a virtue for her. And she's willing to wait and kind of look for the weakness. And her experience tells her that the weakness will come. She'll find the weakness. It'll come. It always does. So as she's mining, there's a bit of an avalanche, and the one friend that she's made in the camp that has befriended her is in trouble. She goes over and saves this woman. And Westerling doesn't really like that. He doesn't want anybody to have that kind of feeling of being in control of their own destiny, in a way, the fact that she saved this woman. So Westerling shoots her in the head. It's brutal. Like, man, just saved, took out a guard and went and saved this woman and kept her from being crushed in an avalanche. And then Westerling, who's kind of overseen everything from high above, just shoots her in the head. So obviously that pisses Jessica off pretty badly. And Westerling, having seen that, realizes just how formidable Jessica is and brings her into his home. And it's like, you're really strong. And, I want to get to know you better. I mean, she's also a very beautiful woman, He's like, I don't want you to be eating the lice-infested gruel that the regular workers eat. Let's give you something that's more enjoyable. But, and again, he's trying to manipulate her. He's like, but before we do that, before I give you, good food and drink and all that, why don't you tell me about this little module, this thing that was so important that you swallowed it, that you were carrying it inside? And Jessica's response is, well, give it back to me and I'll let you live. How about that for a deal? Obviously, Westerling gets a big kick out of that because he certainly seems to have the upper hand, right, in this situation. But not for long, because, again, these two former colleagues of her that have been transformed into these hellhounds, it's not too long before they track her to the camp and start attacking. So there's all these explosions, and that's the opening that Jessica's been waiting for. So once the explosions and all the noise start taking place, Jessica uses it as a distraction to overwhelm one of the guards who's guarding her, grabs his gun, and she's on the run chasing Westerling, who is trying to escape. You know, he's one of those guys who's a survivor. You know, he's lived as long as he's lived. We're told he's had all these enemies over time, military dictators and other criminals he's double-crossed and what have you. And he's always managed to survive because, you know, discretion's a better part of valor for him. He always turns tail and runs at the first sign of trouble. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for him this time because he doesn't get very far before one of the hellhounds finds him and literally rips his head off and crunches his spine, we're told, like cocktail shrimp, which is a very visceral image. So once they've taken out Westerling and got the Heat 16, as Jessica tracks them, she ends up having another flashback, thinking back to a time when she escaped from that mental hospital, guns ablaze in there, as you can see with that kind of that red filter, thinking about other sort of missions that she's been on over time, and also flashing back to soon after that, when she was captured, how Jason Wynn came and found her. And this speaks to that relationship that the two of them have that I talked about before, where they both are sort of exactly what the other one needs. Jason Wynn needs somebody who's willing to kill, you know, without scruples, without conscience, you know, just a weapon he can point and shoot. And Jessica needs to be able to kill with impunity, to be able to go out and kill out in the world where she's not going to get in trouble, right? If she's just trying to live in regular society and she's out there killing people, she's going to get arrested. She's going to spend, you know, her life locked down in some solitary confinement or something like that. But, you know, Jason Wynn is her ticket to be able to kill, to have permission, you know. And from Wynn's perspective, as evil as he is and power hungry as he is, there's a part of him that thinks, you know, what he's doing is for the good of the country. And so in a way, he's like, he's giving her purpose, not only the permission to kill, but to kill for a reason. And so that's kind of the quick and dirty origin of how those two got together. So we see Jessica, she catches up with these two hellhounds. They blame Jessica for all the pain that they've gone through. She was the leader of their mission. She was the leader of their squad. And even though, you know, she was double-crossed by the guy that was their guide, they still blame her. You know, and they're not exactly thinking straight in this new form that they have. So the one that has the Heat 16 module managed to escape. Jessica does take out the other one, as you know, as hard as that is for her to do, because he's pretty formidable. But she does manage to take him out. Basically, he's bleeding, dumps him in the river where all these fire ants are, and they sort of strip him down. And then as she's trying to get back to the lab where she can once again get the Heat 16 module, she's found by a bunch of villagers who kind of worship her and help replenish her. That part, to me, again, a little coincidental. I'll buy it, you know, not too terrible. I mean, maybe this is where a lot of that slave labor came from that Westerling was using. But anyway, be that as it may, the one creature that's left does manage to return, does give the Heat 16 module back to the scientist, but it's not long before Jessica finds her way there. She takes them out without too much trouble because she's Jessica Priest. She gets the module, takes it to Jason Wynn, and lives happily ever after, I guess you'd say. He even says, he asked her, were there any complications? She's like, nothing out of the ordinary. So despite being captured, despite having to mine uranium ore, despite being tortured, despite all this, to her, it's just, you know, another day at the office. in a lot of ways. And so we're left looking at the scientists on the last page. Once she blew up their lab or whatever, their desiccated bodies remain, and we see Jessica return to her family and took them all to Disneyland, Disney World. So that's more of a vacation for them, because it's almost like she just had her theme park. Her theme park's going out and killing people. So yeah, that's basically the origin of Jessica Priest, who, again, at this point, reading the main Spawn comic, we only have hints that she may have been the one that took him out. But I will say this, we have a lot more info because, again, Jessica Priest is a Todd McFarlane creation, as opposed to, if you want to know like history and backstory on Chapel, you got to go read Rob Liefeld's stuff. But even he doesn't put out that much stuff that's just focused on Chapel. His is more of a team book, and it doesn't come out very often. So, already with this idea that Jessica Priest could be the one that's behind the death of Spawn, we understand a lot more about her a lot sooner, as it were, than we ever did about Chapel and his, how formidable he is and his skills and whatnot. So what do you have to add, Blake?
This is a really interesting arc. I like having it immediately after the issue that we just read, where we learn that Jessica Priest exists. So this is sort of like a little aside where, okay, we know that someone named Jessica Priest exists, and then here you go, here's a taste of what she's like, what she's about. And after seeing the events of this little mini arc, you could absolutely see that, you said it best. She is a weapon that Jason can point at anything, and she will complete the mission. Doesn't matter who or what is in her way. She has no scruples. She will just, it's a vacation for her. It's her fun time. And after seeing everything that she goes through, she just writes it off as like, yeah, this is just normal for me. So it's entirely plausible that she is the one responsible for killing Al Simmons.
Yeah, what I like about her as a character, as much as, yeah, that's her happy fun time or whatever, there's kind of a trope where when you get one of these people who's like a living weapon who just lives to kill, it could go one of two ways. Either they're insane, a la the Joker, or they portray them as like almost Terminator-like, where they're this unfeeling machine and they don't care. It's all about completing the mission. And that's Jessica to some extent, right? Like when she gets the Heat 16 module and she's just going to leave. But there is she is an emotional character. She is having fun. And I love the way that McElroy, the writer, evokes that by having her sing these songs. At one point when she's in the woods about to go assault this base where the scientists are, she's singing the theme song to Gilligan's Island, and again, it's about the mission. She goes inside, she does what she has to do. Yes, she kills guards and whatever, but it's not like she's trying to wipe everybody out. Once she gets that Heat 16 module, she's out the door. Mm-hmm. But, and even though she's been tortured, because again, she doesn't think of that as personal. She's been tortured all her life. But you see the difference when it's somebody she cares about that's hurt, right? Like when Westerling takes out her friend at the camp, then it's like, you're going to die. I'm not going to let you live. So it's not that they didn't go lean either way into, okay, completely crazy, insane, no wisdom sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And they didn't go the other way with this like unfeeling killing machine. She's somewhere in the middle. She's completely unbalanced, but very formidable. But, if you push the right button, she'll come for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I feel like that's a really good way to look at her character, because she is a lot more complicated than this little arc presents. I feel like this arc, they wrote a particular way because they wanted to achieve a specific effect and get it in readers' minds like, yeah, she could absolutely do some massive damage. Like, she is a real threat. She is formidable. And it's going to be a very long time before we see her again, but this is not the last time we've seen her. And, she is, in a word, formidable.
Yeah, she's a fun character too. So we'll see how it all plays out. I think the Dwayne Turner art, again, I mentioned it at the top, that his art's very evocative of McFarlane or Capullo. So I think he's a real good choice to have this, fit into the Spawn universe.
Definitely.
Again, very 90s in the layouts, like we said, with a lot of, like almost every panel, something's breaking out of the panel. Plenty of explosions, plenty of blood and gore. And so, yeah, definitely aesthetically, it fits very well into the Spawn universe. So, All right, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right, everybody, we want to thank you for listening as always. Next time, we're going to be talking about some more stuff that's outside of the regular Spawn series. We're going to cover the Cygor mini-series, which is a 6-issue. So we hope you join us for that. And we appreciate you checking us out as always. And we'll talk to you next time.
Later.